Yesterday's watch review today. This is always a fun series. It's nice to do. It's a break away from sort of all the different things that I do, because it's fun to talk about different watches. Today is going to be kind of special because it's a relatively new watch. It's basically a current production produced in 2017 and 2018, sort of a small run watch by Raven Watches. I'm going to be looking at the Raven Venture 1. Now, I've thought about Raven for a while. Raven's been being produced by Steve Laughlin. He's in Kansas. He's been doing this since 2008. And so I've seen people talk about Raven on and off. Less so in the sort of the forums that I frequent, which are typically focused on Japanese stuff, specifically Seiko. But I'd seen them, and I sort of had a note in the back of my head to think about them a little bit more because they looked attractive. They had, at first glance, some things that I dug. And so, but then time went by and I thought about other things and it kind of drifted away from my mind. Well, Steve contacted me recently to have worked on a Seiko 6105 of his. And so I said, oh, that'd be great. Yeah, sure, send it in. And so it came here and I did the usual stuff and I was looking at his Raven Watches on his email and I'm like, and then I looked it up and I was like, oh, right, Raven Watches. I forgot. And so what I did, put this up a little bit. So I said, one of the things I like to do is I like working in trade, actually. I think that's kind of fun. I'm always down for trade and trade watches and doing that kind of thing. And so I said, well, hey, I looked at his website and I was like, would you consider maybe doing a trade rather than, having to, have a cash output? We can do a sort of a barter thing and you send me some, one of the Raven watches and we can go from there. And so we negotiated for that and what I would do for him. And I came up with basically a deal that sort of had a complete watch and basically a case and accessories come here, and I was going to put my own movement into it, an ETA 2872 that I have here. And I thought that would be pretty fun. And so the watches arrived yesterday, and I wasn't really mentally prepared. I had kind of an idea of what it was going to look like based on the case size, which I had looked at sort of equivalent Seiko stuff. But I wasn't really prepared for what I saw. And the longer I looked at it, the more things I saw that I found that were interesting. Especially considering that previous to this, I mean, the only other like new boutique level style watch I'd ever run across was one by this company called Event. And I bought one for myself for Christmas. Officially, the cat bought it for me, but I bought it for myself, and it was the only time I'd seen sort of a modern watch with this, Swiss 2824 movement in it, and which is what this was. And so that was sort of my benchmark. And then I was able to compare it basically yesterday, side by side with this Raven, and I could come up with a real impression. So we're going to break, and I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to blather about all the different things. Okay, and that's really about it. So let's break. So as I said, my only real experience with sort of a modern sort of, small run boutique watch was the, well, not my entire experience, but in terms of ownership was the Avant. And so this is the box I got with the Avant. And I looked at it and I noted like this sort of blurry printing, and it was sort of a light wood box, nothing super high quality. It wasn't bad, but whatever. So, but that's what I was expecting. And then Steve's box showed up, and it was this, this lovely, nice looking box. I mean, a reusable sort of travel box. You're not going to use the Avant box for anything, but this you could actually throw into your luggage. It's a nice travel box. Then I opened it up, and I was like, oh, it's pretty cool. It's got all this great stuff in there. And I went, and I was sort of not taken aback. That's not the right word. I was not shocked. That's also not the right word. I didn't know quite what to expect. I had known that the cases were 42 millimeters. So I was like, okay, well, trying to get a sort of a mental idea of what size they were, I grabbed one of these. This is a slim case 7548, and this case is 42 millimeters, just like this one. But visually,
the elements are balanced very, well, not very differently. They're balanced differently, and it creates a sort of significant visual difference. The rotating ring is larger, the insert is thinner, and then the dial and the hands and everything are sort of writ large. And so this has this sort of, the rotating ring slopes in, and the insert is smaller. It makes the dial smaller, and it makes the whole watch wear smaller. So this looks, to my eyes, like a larger watch. I mean, it reminded me in some ways of how the Seiko Sumo looked, even though this case is much smaller than the Sumo. Pardon me. But the more I looked at it, the more amazed I was. Here's the thing. Okay, so I'm going to talk about my preferences in watches. And my preferences in watches are just that. They're personal preferences, they're opinions. They're not right nor wrong. So I'm going to say things about other watches that I don't particularly like, and you may disagree with me, and that's perfectly, perfectly fine. So that said, I like watches that are simple and clean and highly functional without any extra sort of frippery. I don't like Baroque watches. As an example of what I mean by Baroque, let's look at this thing, which is a Seiko's, what do people call this thing? A land monster? I don't know, but it's like, it's got all this extra junk on it. I've never understood the point of it. Why does the shroud need these giant, big, honking bolts on it? What's the point of this huge crown? I just look at this thing and it looks like somebody is just, I don't know, was just going ape, and I'm not quite sure why. And it's not a harmonious design. And I look at things like this, and to my eyes, that makes it feel more like a fashion watch. Where Seiko did things right was, of course, with things like their 6309 divers, which are essentially perfect. And there are a lot of the things that I really like, is that they're very, very, very basic, very, very functional. Day-date, which is nice, extremely legible dial, rotating ring, and that's it. Screw down crown. Very, very functional watch. This is, in a way, we're going to get 12 bonks. In a way, this is very, goodness, this is very simple and clean like that, and I really like that effect. Steve, when he was talking to me about these watches, he said that he's had people tell him that he needs to design watches for the next generation of watch owners. I have no idea what that would possibly mean. He should continue to design watches how he likes to design them. These were a limited run of 200, and he says he has a Venture 2 coming out, the next model, and he says he doesn't really look back. He's going to have the next version's going to do some different things, and it's going to be its own beast. But this is just, I mean, the thing that really got me, not only was the simplicity and cleanliness of it, extreme legibility, but the quality of the fine details. I was looking at this beautiful sort of charcoal matte insert, which is a single piece ceramic. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. Actually, I really like that. It looks like, I have a thing where I like things to look like the thing they're made of. So I don't like plated watches and things like that. And this is really cool that this is a single material. And then it's got infill here. And what I loved about the infill is it's got this beautiful sort of hollowness to it. And it absolutely standardized. I mean, every single one is the same. I mean, there's no variation. It's all done the same. High quality. And I was looking at that, like the gorgeous sort of, with soft satin finish. And then we've got solid end links on here. And the fit is perfect. They don't rattle at all. Solid stainless end links. They don't rattle at all. Pardon me. It's the apple trees going outside, and it's killing me. And I was looking at other details, super fine details that you'd never think about. So there's a small angle on the top of these pieces here, which would, in theory, and there might have been a gap right here, but they went so far as to actually machine this so that there is no gap. There's actually a tiny little bit of material here. So you've got a perfect fitment. Perfect fitment. The bracelet is beautiful. Every single link is screwed together. None of this ridiculous nonsense that Seiko loves to do, which is their stupid pin and collar system, the dumbest bracelet system I've ever seen in my life. It's so easy. It's impossible to almost, it's almost impossible to not lose the stupid collars when you're working on these things. Idiotic design. This is simple screws. Strong, clean, industrial design. This, it comes with a diver clasp. Sort of a hidden diver clasp. It has adjustment points on both sides. I mean, this is, I mean, this watch is only $650. And it feels like, this thing is hitting way out of its price class. This is, frankly, I mean, this should be a more expensive watch. Pardon me. The fit and finish remind me of Sin, honestly. That's what it reminds me of. You have other watches that they're kind of in this thing, which is like Steinhardt, and I've taken apart a Steinhardt, and they're pretty nice. They're pretty nice. I mean, I like them, but Steinhardt didn't feel this solid to me. And also, Steinhardt is sort of slavishly devoted to the idea of replicating Rolex. And I was like, you know, if I wanted to buy a Rolex, I would, you know, find a way to make that happen. But what I instead wanted is I wanted something modern and unique. That was its own piece. The only Rolex nod this has is, of course, the dial, which is an Explorer type dial. And of course, I mean, it's such a classic dial design, and it's so incredibly legible. I mean, I can see why he chose that. Even the fonts are the same, and the bar markers are the same. There's just, he did so many things right with this watch. And then I started, you know, thinking about this. I wrote him back. I wrote him 3 unanswered emails last night, going on and on and on about new things that I'd found. The toolishness of it, the fact that it doesn't have a display case back. I mean, the movement is sealed up as it should be. It doesn't need to show anything off. That can be sealed away just like it is. And it's impressive. And I compare this. And so I was thinking about the Avant. And I was thinking, you know, just everything that I didn't like about the Avant, I love in this. The Avant is a weird sort of fashion watch. I mean, they have this marine bronze, that's cool. And I like this sort of the insert here, but it's sort of a pretty shiny glitzy watch. Also, as my biggest complaint are just the weird dial elements. Like the markers are way bigger than they should be. The hands are smaller than they should be. The fact that you've got the tan loom with sort of this sort of copper applied stuff, it makes its legibility kind of odd. It's a very tall watch. I mean, it's in functionality, it's the same as this, but I got to tell you, this watch feels significantly better than this one. This watch is $650. This watch was $500. This brings a lot more to the table than just $150 more than this thing. I mean, the Avant, it's just everything that this is wrong about this, to my eyes, is right here. And it's, you know, they're just cool. So anyway, this is the Venture 1. He's going to come out with the Venture 2, and apparently it's going to be the same size case, but it's going to have some slightly different sizings and dial elements. But it's such, I don't know, I'm just blathering, but I mean, there's so many things I look at and I just like the simplicity of the dial text. I mean, one of my biggest bitches about the Marine Master is this lines of 4 text. It drives me bananas. It has no balance. They shouldn't be there. It should be 3 lines or 2. And yet here we are. He's got a clean design. That's the whole thing. It's all clean. It's all restrained. I mean, there are things that I could potentially, me personally, I would change about the design, certain things, but that's my preference. It's not saying that anything he did was right or wrong. And again, this is just an opinion for me. It's just, you know, it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And I'm a big fan. For $650 for one of these, that's an insane bargain. That's an insane bargain. For the quality and for what I'm seeing, the fit and the finish and the extras, the accessories, the stuff that it comes with. I mean, we got extra straps and different kinds of diver clasps and everything else like that. These are bargains. What a cool watch. The only thing I think I would ever wish for is if they had this exact watch, but in 40 millimeters, just ever so slightly tighter. But it's definitely growing on me. And I love all of the elements. The visual size of it is the only thing that kind of threw me for a loop. Because again, that big dial makes it wear bigger. Like this watch, Grandfather Tuna, that's much bigger than this one. Much, much bigger. But because the dial is smaller, the elements are changed. And it wears smaller than the case. This wears larger than the case. But that's a minor, minor quibble. Minor quibble. I'm really impressed. Really, really, really impressed. These are, I'm sorry to say, they're unavailable. But the Venture 2 is coming out soon, and there's also the Trekker, which is a 40 millimeter. So visit Raven Watches and check out what Scott has.
I actually had a couple more things to say. I was trying to keep it under 15 minutes, because if you keep it under 15 minutes, you can upload directly from my iPhone, which makes it simpler, but I'm already over 15 minutes, so screw it. One of the things, too, that I've really been wanting to do was related to my frustration with modern Seiko. Modern Seiko, as I have been talking about repeatedly and many people have talked about, they seem to have sort of, I don't know, in my opinion, they've lost their way. They seem to be more concerned with limited editions, external looks, less so from being like truly like watch accuracy, durability, that kind of stuff. Their new range of movements, the newer range of movements, the 4R and 6R movements, they just seem to be buggy, problem prone, and I mean, everybody out there, I'm sure, has heard at least a few people talk about the problems with amplitude problems, the C-type balance issues that these watches have. I mean, this is a SARB 033. This is a JDM watch with 6R15 in it. And this watch is nearly new, and it came to me for a guy who hadn't had it very long, and it had all kinds of problems, all kinds of terrible problems, and I've worked a lot on this watch, and it's still weird and buggy. This is a 6R15. This is a basically brand new watch. All kinds of problems. Same one as this. So, this thing, this is a 4R36, and it is so, the movement, the balance is so weird, it doesn't even want to run anymore. And again, this watch is, relatively speaking, it's new. You may remember some of the video I made about the reissue of the 62 MAS, the SLA 017, and how I took this thing, it's $4,000 watch, and I put it on the time grapher. And it had beat error, and it was inaccurate. It had some weird finishing issues inside the case back. It just was like, Seiko seems to demonstrate, they say all the right things. What they actually do is not the same. Hang on just one second. Hopefully you guys can hear me now. But it is, Seiko saying one thing and doing another thing has been very frustrating to me. It's Seiko, they really had something going, and then they've decided to abandon it. They don't seem to really care that much about their long-term support. They don't care about any of that stuff. So I've gotten more interested in ETA movements. I've gotten older ETA movements and serviced them and gotten wonderful results out of them. Modern ETA 2824-2s out of the box, even some more of the base models are great. Sin uses ETA. A lot of companies use them, and they have different, sort of in-house tweaks that they do to them, and they're extremely accurate, durable, and strong. I mean, how many watches in the world have a Valjoux 7750 in them? Many. I mean, it's just, this is my Le Jour, and it's a wonderful watch. And so I wanted to have a watch that wasn't just interesting on the outside, like the SARB, which is a watch that everybody loves. Everybody loves the SARB. It's nice that it's pretty and that it has all this elegance on the outside. But if the movement can't be depended on, what is it? It's no different than wearing a pretty bracelet, because its primary function should be to tell time. And if it can't do that reliably and durably, why? So, 2824s. And I've been looking for a watch that is everything, not just the outside, but the inside as well. So you get a watch that is, carefully crafted and designed externally, with basically a bulletproof movement inside, and you come up with something that's just, you know, not superlative, that's not the word I'm looking for, but it's complete. It's a complete watch. And I'm just, you know, it's pleasing. It's pleasing. I mean, this is, you know, the fact that it's 300 meters and it's got all this other stuff, you know, that's great, that's really nice. But what impresses me was the eye for the detail and the fact that it has a reliable movement. I'm fairly certain that I could wear one of these every day for months and it would be wonderful. Whereas a brand new Seiko with a 6R15 or a 4R15, it's going to be janky out of the box, and it's going to probably, there's a good chance it's going to have issues down the line. It's just sad to say. You know, I think of Seiko back in the day versus Seiko now as two completely different companies because their philosophies seem to be utterly different. Okay, so with that in mind, I really will sign off now to say thank you to Steve Loefflin of Raven Watches, and to check out their site and look at them, because I think this is really nice. And it's not flashy, it's not glitzy, it's not bragging material, it's not a copy of something else. It's a good, basic, solid, legible, usable, wearable watch. That is a bargain at $650. A bargain. Okay, now I really am done. Okay, thank you so much for watching all this stuff, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.